So this is going to be a strange thing to admit to, since I'm actually working on the same type of game, but I actually tend to avoid the majority of games that try to be a retro throwback of some kind. That's because of something that I call for want of a better term, retro Uncanny Valley. I've never really seen it called out directly, but that's what I attribute it to when people complain about the text in a remaster such as Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy, or Mega Man Battle Network for a more recent example. Essentially, the original game's graphics were made for a low resolution, such as 320 by 240, but the new font is scaled for HD, resulting in an inconsistent look where some things are pixelated and some are not. This doesn't just apply to font though, and it's essentially a case of assets scaling at different amounts without filtering, so there's no consistent fake or target resolution. Now with that context in mind, the subject of my review video today is a bit of an odd one. It's called Alterium Shift, and I didn't actually ask for a review key. The publisher decided to send me one, and I decided to oblige their request for a review. But the thing is, this is actually an early access. I've done demos before, but this is the first for me. I don't know what's going to change and what's set in stone, so I'm going to criticize things that might be placeholder, and I might sound too harsh in the process, so keep that in mind. First off, Alterium Shift touts itself as a retro-inspired JRPG, and by JRPG I mean a Super Nintendo RPG. They were made for controllers first, had great usability and streamlining and accessibility options everywhere. It's a bit of a lost art if you ask me. In fact, some of the press info straight up says that it's based on games like Chrono Trigger and Breath of Fire. However, I straight up don't agree with this. It's a fixed camera perspective and the sprite style is kind of on the nose, but the world is in 3D with 2D sprites. In fact, the starting premise of the game is that you have 3 characters with their own field skills, which is like Wild Arms on the PlayStation. Healing items are also percentage based, which is quite rare and is a defining property in games like Star Ocean and Tales. This might just be a marketing thing though, but I'm terribly amused at how the current publisher is an indie division of Gravity, which is most well known for Ragnarok Online. I'm not really sure what to make of this though, since it implies that they didn't really look at PlayStation RPGs very much, even though there's some crossover. Either way, one takeaway is that I'm bothered by how I can't spin the camera around, even though the game is made for it. The camera is used for one of the core story mysteries actually. The premise is that you occasionally enter an alternate mirror world, and it's represented by the map just flipping 180 degrees. North becomes south, east is west, etc. I think that's technically a spoiler, but there hasn't been anything else hooking me into the story yet. The start of the game didn't provide me with any lore at all, and I picked a character but wasn't given anything important about them up front. All 3 of them start in the same place at some sort of training academy. After wandering around, I figured out that I just had to trigger the final exam, which was a quiz on the world's lore, which I failed because I never learned anything, and a combat test, after which I received the first mission. I picked the character named Atlas, and I wasn't really motivated to try another one because it took me about an hour and a half to link up with another starting character, after 2 whole other temporary party members. I also didn't get any backstory or learn any character motives the whole time. The first mission itself was to hunt monsters, and I was only told to kill every monster in the forest. And with only a single party member, this got very, very monotonous. After the first boss, I finally hit the portal, and I ended up taking a break to play Wild Arms, and check how long it took for me to get to the call to adventure in that game. And I'll just say that it didn't take as long as this. The opening act definitely needs some more tuning, and I'm hoping that this isn't the final revision. Design-wise, I didn't find the gameplay particularly remarkable, but do be aware of what the game is pitched as. The combat appears to be a queue-driven, turn-based battle system, which I could say is essentially Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3, but the addition of a displayable queue has its roots in Final Fantasy X. However, I didn't find any indication of a turn-delaying attack, and I also barely attacked at all. Since I was a single party member for a really long time, I just kept using my skills and never really stopped after getting a proper party. There's also a special meter, but it's rather obtuse. It was only given to me during the first boss, and the special was inside the skill menu. The user interface has a lot of work ahead of it, and this goes back to what I said earlier about inconsistent asset resolutions. For example, all of the boxes use the same border sprite, regardless of size or shape. As a result, the bezel constantly changes in thickness, which is a mistake that even I've done, and to be fair, probably low priority at this stage in development. The pixel text font is alright, but there are several parts where the scale is different in some menus, making it hard to read and just looking inconsistent. The world itself also looks alright, though there was this one dancing NPC I was really bothered by, since she's at a different scale when standing right next to me. I zoomed in later to check the size of her assets, which probably sounds a bit weird when I phrase it that way. The maps have also been rather difficult to navigate. There's no indication of screen transitions and the segments are pretty small. The world map does have quest markers, but it's not really accurate, so I was pretty much just stumbling my way towards them blindly and constantly pausing into a long loading transition to check over and over. Anyway, it's kind of difficult to figure out how much to say here, since there's a line between giving my honest impression of the game versus just making a list of nitpicks that might be better as a bug or feedback report. It is an early access title after all, and there isn't a huge public roadmap, so I'd prefer to bite my tongue in a video that might become obsolete. They have, however, gotten to a running start by putting out daily patches. It's kind of why I haven't tried to comment on early access before, but I did say that they sent me a review key, so I'm gonna be honest about it. As the saying goes though, there's no perfect project. You just declare it done, and I think I'm kind of done with trying to record this transcript. Overall, I'm not really seeing a strong selling point in this in the moment, and the critical opening hours need some more work. Or rather, I can maybe see an interesting hook here that might set the game apart, but there's not enough emphasis on it in the pitch yet, if at all. Finally, with everything being said, if you made it to the end, I did find a list of some sort of goal, and I threw in a CRT shader out of curiosity since it was listed there. So, here's a bit of a bonus. Thanks for watching, and be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.